delicious magazine. Isn't it colorful and pretty? It is so pretty. Is that a McAllister's? No, it's a Jason's Deli to Go. Oh, I love it. It's basically a veggie tray. Yeah, it was like all those mushrooms. I like it.
Okay, everybody. So welcome back in. For those of you yesterday, I just wanted to say thank you for being super. And it was a lot of information, and I understand because I was you last week with everything that you guys are just now experiencing. Secondarily, if you were here in person, you know how hot it was in here, and I want to thank you guys for sticking it out. Turns out that the AC had frozen because someone had put the temperature on like 65 over the weekend. So that's why we were all like, oh my gosh, but it's fixed, as you guys can tell. So thank y'all for being really awesome and not complaining about it, because I was complaining on the inside. You didn't notice? Okay. I was like a sweaty beast when we left. All right. So hopefully you guys kind of took it upon yourselves to get into booj outside of the classroom yesterday and just kind of play with it and to see kind of what it looks like on your screens and kind of navigating it. We're going to kind of pick up right where we left off from yesterday. We're going to start everything out in the CRM, which is, do y'all remember what that stands for?
Client retention management.
So awesome. So good. Yeah. So customer or client relationship management system. That's what a CRM is. And these have been around for a while. You guys are no stranger to them. Several of you in this room use them, whether that's Top Producer or Boomtown, something along those same lines. If you've been playing around in booj, then you know that a lot of it is very, very similar from screen to screen to screen. So if you were not able to make any of the classes yesterday and this is your first time in, no need to fear. A lot of it's going to be familiar, and that's a good thing. So how do we get to booj? Mac Center. Very good, Mac Center. So I'm going to go ahead. You are on a roll.
I'm really bored. I didn't take high school seriously, and I'm making up for it now.
Okay, so from here, you guys will see that already, just since yesterday, do y'all notice anything different in Mac Center? Yep, booj moved, as well as, this is new, those used to be little hearts. So that's a very, very good example, a very subtle example of the changes that they're continuing to make. So I'm going to go into the beta environment just because I'm going to be clicking around on some things. So yours may look a little bit different than mine. I have the live version, but I don't want to play in there like I want to play in my beta version. So for you, your tile looks just like this one right here. It says booj platform. I'm going to go into the beta version though. And it will open into a new window, okay? Here is what the dashboard looks like. So again, some of this should be familiar. Your main menu is up here in this gray bar next to the booj logo. So contacts and leads, we did a lot of work in there yesterday. Some of you have actually uploaded or imported your own contacts. Ashley, you come to mind. How was your experience uploading your own list? Good. And how many did you have on your list?
Well, I had one was like 200 and something, and then the other was like 300 something, so I just combined them, and it was like 556.
And it was no problem.
I mean, I put them on one list together. So
Right.
I just one upload.
She did one import, and all of them made it. And she was able to kind of go through and sort and make sure that, go ahead.
I did like the household, like I had like in my phone, like I pulled all my contacts in my phone because I had them in Gmail, so they were in my Google contacts, and then I pulled them in a CSV, but like I would have like husband and wife separately in my phone,
Right.
each a phone number, and then on my mailing list, I had the same couple as Joseph and Jennifer Smith or whatever, and so it pulled all three contacts into booj, and then she showed me how to make the husband and wife one the household, and then put the husband contact and the wife contact under that household. So I had them actually loaded 3 times,
But now you'll have the ability, depending on how you want to mark it. Correct.
I'm gonna need something special to teach you later.
So for those of you guys on Zoom, if you were not able to hear Ashley, she had her lists already prepared in CSV format, which is in Excel. And what she did yesterday, just kind of after class, was she was like, I'm just going to import it and see what happens. And she did. It was a CSV, as I mentioned. She got them in there. She got to kind of play around. She saw her duplicates. She was able to create households where if you have a husband and a wife and you know that they're in the same household, you can note that within the system. She was able to do that. So depending on how she wants to create a mailing label, if she did, she could have the option of having them on one as a household, or she has them broken out as their own contact as well. So that's a really cool feature that we talked about yesterday. So she had good success. If you're somebody who has your contacts prepared and they're cleaned up and they're ready to go, then I would encourage you to try to start uploading them or importing them into booj like we went through yesterday. If you're curious about the step-by-step process and how to do that, there are step-by-step instructions here in the training room. And then also they are online in that Dropbox folder. I'm going to post the link this afternoon in our super secret Facebook group. That way you guys have it. But the majority of you who are on Zoom today were here yesterday, so you should be good to go. All right. So getting back to what we're going to talk about today, again, we're staying within the CRM. We're not going to go into websites until tomorrow. So Thursday and Friday are going to be heavily focused on your agent websites and what that looks like. So yay, that'll be fun. Again, kind of keeping with the same format with our classes, it's show and tell. So in the morning, I'm going to show you guys kind of what that looks like, how to move around in there, how to access different parts of that website. And then in the afternoon, we'll get in there and start moving things around in your agent website areas. Now, as a reminder, we have full access to edit the content within our websites, but those websites are not going to launch until November when remax.com has its big full launch, because that's what's the parent site of all the little sites that go underneath it. Are y'all with me? Okay, yay. All right, so a couple of things that I failed to point out to you guys yesterday that are super, super wonderful within booj. Do you guys see this question mark here in blue at the bottom? Right over here. Right over here behind my head. Okay, so your screens all have this too. If you ever are working within booj and you're confused on where you need to go to get whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can click on this little blue square and it's your resource center. So it's going to tell you how to do whatever it is that you need to do and walk you through it on your screen, step by step by step. This little question mark here at the bottom. No, this little guy right here. So you guys can see on my screen here, you've got how-to guides, suggestions, support, announcements. That's very helpful because anytime a new feature is released, that should show up in these announcements area. You'll also get notifications within Max Center anytime there's a new release. But that's really cool because you're getting the updates as you're working in the system. So it's a good way to kind of keep a pulse on what's going on. Let's see. Well, yours is just not.
You're not allowed to ask questions. How old are you?
I'm wondering though.
Well, the big one's gonna be in November, because that's
Were
where
you a beta
membership
tester?
was and all these other
No.
ones that are.
Is Jennifer the only one that doesn't have this question mark at the bottom? Y'all all have yours?
Maybe it's her screen, it's not showing everything. It doesn't have the slide, and normally I have the slide.
Okay.
But it was a good idea, but no.
Unfortunately. Okay, so I'm going to submit a ticket for you.
Okay.
And we'll get that added. ASAP. All right, so that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I shared with you guys because it is really cool. So these how-to guides, I'm just going to, and so say that we're going to talk a lot about tasks today. And if you guys have used CRMs before, you know that that's a pretty cool little feature. With booj, you will have the ability to assign a task. So teams, this speaks directly to you guys, to somebody else on your team. So if you guys are doing, say you're like having a realtor luncheon as a team, and there are things that have to be done as a way to prepare for those, you can create those tasks, or better, create a task plan. So something that you do over and over and over again without really deviating from that. You can assign that to individual people, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
Be honest, like I can't make that.
it's extremely helpful with teams. Individuals, I don't know that you would have a lot of use for that, but as an individual, I will say tasks are a wonderful way to keep you organized, because with the tasks, you can set the priority level. Like, is this low priority? Can I get to it a little bit later? Is it more of a mid-level priority, so I need to do it sooner rather than later? Or is it a high priority where I need to do it right now? So that's a really cool way. With task plans, that's something like, say that there are you have a set process for the way that you handle a listing appointment or a buyer appointment. And you know that these are the things that you need to prepare, or that these are the things that you need to do as part of that. That's where a task plan can be very beneficial, because it's a digital checklist, so to speak, to kind of keep everybody on the same page as you're working a million miles an hour. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Tasks can be also assigned to a deal. The deal thing completely freaks Dana Johnson out, but a transaction. I like that. Let's call it that.
Yeah, deal was kind of used car sale.
Yeah. So in booj, they are called deals. So we're going to use those terms interchangeably. Transaction and deals, that's the same thing. You can also assign a task specific to that transaction or specific to that deal, however you want to look at it. So individuals can have tasks, teams can have tasks, deals can have tasks. Okay. So it's pretty robust in the way that you can kind of use them, and everybody will use them a little bit differently, I think. So let's see. The way, and I'll just share with you guys too, one of the first thoughts that I had with these task plans and the way that they can be automated, I immediately thought of onboarding for agents, because there's a certain series of events that we have to do as a staff whenever we bring somebody on. So things that are repeated over and over with different people, that's what I think of when I think of automating a task plan. You guys could do the same thing. Like, if you know that these 4 or 5 things have to happen for you to do X, Y, Z, that's where you would want to create a task plan. And within that plan, it can automatically remind you, like, hey, 3 days from now, make sure you're doing this. And 10 days from now, make sure you're doing this. And as those tasks are coming up, they're also going to be on your calendar within booj, which is pretty great too, because then it's going to remind you, if you have your notification set up that way, it's going to remind you, like, hey, don't forget, you set this up as a task, make sure you get it done. So it's just a little way to keep those checks and balances in play without having to physically be in any one place. That's the beauty of having it on the computer, but also on your phone with the mobile app. It'll have the same features, same functions. Okay, so let me show you guys kind of how this works. So did y'all see when I clicked on that little link over here where I said add a task to a contact? And it's immediately bringing me up here. It's saying you want to click on the profile icon, which is where it brought me. And then I'm going to want to click on settings. I did what it told me. Now look what it did. It says click the settings pages menu, then select tasks. So it is step by step by step walking me through this process from right within the system, which is wonderful because there are probably 100 things that you guys can do with this at any given point. So it's easy to kind of forget each little step. Now you don't have to worry about that. It's all built into this program. Do y'all love that? Because I love that. Okay, so I'm going to click on settings, and you guys feel free to follow along. You should have access to everything that I'm doing. Okay, so where I started, I clicked on the little person in the top right-hand corner right here. And then I clicked on settings. Then it brought me over here, and it says you want to click on settings pages, and then I'm going to go to tasks because that's what we're talking about today. And y'all let me know whenever we get here. Let me know when you get back over there.
So is this something where I could, 7 days before a closing date, send myself a reminder to tell more people to get their utilities?
Totally. That is a wonderful example. So for you guys on Zoom, Dana said, is this something where 7 days before her transaction closes, could it be a task set up in here to remind her to tell her people to get the utilities on or off? Either way. And I said, yes, that's a wonderful example of how a task can be utilized to keep you moving on the right track and keep everything organized through all the phases of your transaction.
Can you set it up where it does future, like before, like she was saying, that you're doing a future email setup, that it automatically goes out?
So that's going to be in a different area within booj. That's going to be under campaigns. Tasks, think about it as your to-do list. It's your to-do list. So when you walk into the office every day and you're looking at a list that's probably as tall as you are, think of that as the same thing, just in booj. So whatever your to-do list looks like, ooh, that was a mouthful. Whatever that looks like, you can make that in here. Some people are more comfortable with a written to-do list. I am one of those people. I will tell you that. I have great satisfaction of checking the box and highlighting it as if I've done it. However, like I shared with you guys, when it comes to kind of staff functions, I think we're going to get a lot of mileage out of these tasks and task plans. We've been searching and searching and searching for something that can talk to all of us and keep us all moving toward the same finish line, and we haven't found it yet. But I think, judging by what I've seen in our own training, this is going to be able to do that for us. Yeah. There are integrations coming. It's going to be able to sync up in real time with your Google calendars. Also, I think the iCalendar, which is an Apple product, they're working on those integrations as well. So as you update things and as certain notifications come up with events that maybe you've put in here, those two things should talk to each other both ways, which is a big deal.
So if you're putting stuff in, like, I mean, I get stuff on my Google Calendar now.
Mhm.
When I put stuff, in Backpage.
Right.
So it'll just.
Same way.
There twice.
It works the same way, only with Back Agent, those two things don't talk to each other, which is my big gripe. Because if I make an event on my Google Calendar, I would love it to show up in Back Agent. It doesn't. It only works when I create it in Back Agent and it talks to my Google Calendar. With booj and that future integration that you're talking about that's coming, they're going to talk both ways to each other, which is huge. Because then it eliminates that extra step that you guys are having to take to make sure that you see the information in 2 places or 3 places if you have a written planner too. So really good questions. Really good. Do y'all have any questions on anything I've talked about so far? Okay. All right. So these are task plans. And really, let's just take a look at some of these. Do y'all remember what blue means? Oh, you're so good. Yes, blue means new. If you guys have not been in booj training yet, blue means new, and new meaning it's going to take you to a different area within the system, which is great. So if I want to learn more about this buy or close task plan, I would simply click on it. You guys are probably in the live environment, so you won't see some of these because nothing should have been created unless you created it. So you guys can kind of see all the tasks that are associated with this task plan. So this is for a buy or close. So suspend the client from the saved searches and other email alerts. So these are just little reminders that as you approach your buyer's closing, or maybe you just closed your buyer, these are the things that need to take place or leading up to that close. So the inspection notice is due, change the status in the MLS, those little things that we're like, oh yeah, I need to do that. This is what that's designed to do, and just kind of ping you, hey, don't forget. These are fully customizable because each of you has your own way of doing things, which makes you so brilliant. You can create it the way that you would want to work it, okay? So that's really great. You also have full control over the days and the sequence. So if you know, like Dana said, 10 days out, that's my reminder for these utilities, you could set that within this task plan. That they can be changed at any time. So if you feel like, okay, I need 3 days, really, that's really all that I need, even though I set it for 5, when I created the task plan, it's fully editable. So it can change as you change. And in other words, it adapts to what you guys are doing. These are the closed tasks that are within that plan. So make sure you send your handwritten notes, update the contact tags like we talked about yesterday. So maybe you had them in there as a first-time home buyer. And then maybe you're going to represent them again. This was the second time that they were a buyer with you. And now you can remove that tag and then whatever you need to do to make sure that that information stays current. It's just little reminders to do that. Schedule your follow-up calls. These are good for open houses. I don't know, do any of you guys do open houses in here? Yay! Sometimes.
Not that I have.
So you guys know, especially if you've been in our open house class, that the key to open houses is in the preparation and in the follow-up. So with prep, I mean, there's probably 10 or 15 things that you can do leading up to the open house to really kind of get the word out. That would make a really great task plan, followed by the day after open house task plan. So call anybody who came by, follow up with them, send them a thank you note, so on and so forth. So that's another way that you could use this. It doesn't have to be specific to a transaction or a deal. It could be just in your day-to-day. Maybe you have a set amount of activities that you do every Monday. I do. And every Sunday. I do. So when I'm sending you guys those emails saying, here's the schedule, on Mondays, I'm also posting the calendar in our super little Facebook group. I mean, there are things that I do regularly that would make really great task plans. So do y'all see yourself having any kind of a need to use the task plans? I think so. And I think that the more you kind of go through your day-to-day and you're like, oh man, I need to be reminded of that, think about that in terms of a task or a task plan. Okay.
I think having it on my phone, once we get the app,
Yes.
it will be easier. 'Cause I keep
100%.
notes section.
So how do you check it off? Like it's done.
Okay, so up here, where is it? Hang on.
Yeah, the check mark.
Yes. So you'll see any of your tasks that are overdue, that are due today. You can also add a task from right within that little check mark at the top menu. And if you want to see an expanded view of any task that's out there, you would just click View All. I'm going to go ahead and click that. So you guys can kind of see an aerial view or a bird's eye view of what's already been completed, what's due in the future, what can I put off till tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So where do you think I would go if I wanted to add a task? Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so the blue button, Add Task. Okay, so you guys, this is not complicated. It is a little box that pops up. It says, what do you want to call this task? So if I want to have, give me a task.
Make flyers.
Make flyers. Perfect. Okay. So I can set my due date. When do I want to have this done by? I'm going to say Friday. Give myself some time. I'm going to make this a low priority. In the grand scheme of things, that's probably not a huge deal, but the beauty of it is you can set that type of priority. So according to what you know needs to happen, you have full control over how these are prioritized, which is nice because if you guys have worked in other CRMs, sometimes they default the priority status for certain tasks, and that drives me nuts because not everything should be a high priority. It may not be. You may have time with it, and it doesn't need to be hitting you over the head all the time, you know? So I'm gonna say low priority. This is where you can assign it to someone. You're in here by default because you typically will be the one handling the tasks. But if you, in the future, you guys will be able to assign it to a certain person, especially in a team environment. So here I am. I'm gonna click that box, and it is, I'm gonna say to make flyers. So that's specific to a transaction, right? Because I'm obviously gonna have flyers to market a property, or I'm assuming that's what you meant, Stacy. So you guys see that there's a task type, and I mentioned this earlier. So it's either a task that's related to a contact, like, oh, I need to follow up with this person, or, oh, I need to go and set showings with this person, or whatever the case may be. That's specific to a contact. Does that make sense? Okay. Similarly, making flyers for a property is specific to a transaction that's currently underway or a deal, right? And this could be a million different things relative to a deal. And this works really well because as you add, and if you're using that feature within booj, the deal or the transaction feature, any task that you assign or associate with that deal is going to show up. So it's going to be everywhere that that transaction is within this system. Okay. So there's always really good visibility. That way nothing really slips through those cracks. Last type of task type is the personal task. So this could be really anything that's not related to a specific contact and it's not related to a specific deal. So renewing your board membership or something that is relevant to your business but doesn't pertain to somebody specific or a specific transaction. Yes. Yes, exactly. So when I clicked deal, you guys also saw this little box pop up. So it wants to know, what deal is this tied to? What deal can I associate this with? So I'm going to pick this one, the Windsor deal. Hooray. And you can also add a description. So if you just needed to write yourself a quick note as to what you were meaning with this task or why you need to get it done by a certain date, totally up to you. You have that ability right here in description, but it's not required. So I'm just going to click on the blue button that says add task. And then there it is. So my new little task, make flyers, right here. It's due in the future. It shows me this due date as well. It shows me the priority and it tells me which deal this is associated with. Likewise, if you guys remember when we were in the contacts and leads feature yesterday, I have full control over how I want to see this information in these columns. So if I went up here, just like I did yesterday under edit columns, then I can move these around however I want them to look. So if I want to see the due date first, I'm just going to click and drag that up. If I don't want to see the priority, I'm just going to uncheck that box, and you see it took it away from this list. So I'm going to see, I'm done with that. I'm going to say done. And then what will happen is it's going to completely change the way that these columns look. So now you guys see the due date is all the way over here, whereas before it was over here. My priority is gone because I didn't want to see that. So you guys understand that you can see what you want to see. You don't have to worry about any clutter if you don't want to see it.
But it didn't put them in date order though.
No, it's got the newest date at the top.
You just select that.
But
You
then
can do the filters, right?
there you
select
go.
So
Okay.
just how you would see like any type of other filter, like when you're searching for different things or sorting, I always think of online shopping because you can see like price and it goes highest to lowest. Same thing works here. So you can click on these little titles here and they'll sort them when you click on that. And then likewise, you can go back if you want to, just like that.
You have a task that, is there any way to set one recurring, like say, you know, you say thank you notes every day, like the day
You
take
can.
off, no, you get it that day.
Yeah.
Still come back tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be in the automated task plan. So in other words, it's going to be triggered by a previous event. So what that means is, okay, you indicate that in booj, you have a transaction that just closed. That task plan should kick in and say, hey, Stacy, your thing just closed. Now you have this task, and this task to complete now that that has closed. And that could be a thank you note. It could be changing the status in the MLS. It could be getting a, you know, calling them a week after they close to check on them.
Does that have to be deal specific stuff?
Nope. Nope, it could be
Set it up
anything.
and automatic.
It could be anything. And my understanding, that is a future feature. It might be available now. I just don't know how far. I don't know how far it's going to go in terms of the functionality. So we can play with that and just see. Any questions on how to create a task or add a task? Yeah, Melinda.
This is the only way to get to it by clicking the checkbox on the top.
That's a very good question. That's how I find it each time, just because it's kind of up here in this menu. I don't, let me check. Let me check. Might be. Yeah, from my understanding at this stage, I just click the check. I was thinking it might be under contacts or maybe even deals. Yeah.
Under participants, who is that exactly supposed to do?
Okay, so I moved over to the deals menu, I guess is a good word for it. So anybody who is participating, anybody who is in an active transaction is going to show up here. So if you had,
So I tried to add it.
yes,
Yes.
And
When I've got going. And then when I tried to put participants in there, it would only put me in.
did you have people?
So you have to make sure they're in your contact list first.
Let's
before
see.
they can be a participant. Probably,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, 'cause that's how it works.
Yes.
So when you add a deal, you can't just populate it in there and then sync up. If you have to do that contact.
Correct. And that's so yes.
But the good thing about that is that eventually you're gonna wanna mail something to everybody you've done a deal with. And if you don't have the contacts in there, then you wouldn't be able to mail.
Yeah. I understand what you guys are saying because with Back Agent, it works that way. Like you can just type the people in and then it's like, oh, hey, now they're in your contacts.
Well, I usually do put them in lead first,
Uh-huh.
and then I go from there, but you just playing around with it, I was like,
Yeah.
add a deal. So,
Yeah.
It was kind of like zip forms, you know, to get signatures, you have to have added them as a party before you can.
I mean, you can almost go in there and type every.
Yeah.
And you guys have and I completely understand where you're coming from. I think booj takes the position that they should already be listed as a contact or a lead within your system, because if you're working it, especially with the app, and you're just adding people constantly, then they're already in here. And so by the time that you create a deal with that lead or with that contact, you just attach it to that deal, if that makes sense.
But when you think that once all these updates and things get done and we move down the road, that it's gonna talk to all that stuff so that you wouldn't have to go in there and add it to booj because you've already got it in your emails or because you got it in Back Agent. It's gonna be able to talk to each other, that hopefully booj will just be able to find it from all those resources.
I don't know unless you set it to do that, because like we talked about yesterday, there are hundreds of people in my cell phone that have nothing to do with my work. And I don't know that I would want all hundreds of those people to go into my CRM that I use for business.
I know, but so, again, I understand that, so
Mhm.
but you would have an open door in all these other applications that the contacts are sitting out there in whatever application it is. So when you do go into booj can talk to your Outlook or your Google and it can pull it over.
Mhm.
It's not gonna pull anything over, but it's gonna be able to pull the contact, because to me, that's redundant. You've got it in here and you've got it here, and now booj is saying, if you want us to be able to do it for all your perspectives and your deals, then you gotta load it into us now.
Yeah.
So
And I see where you're coming from. I think I just view it a little bit differently, because booj would have no way to distinguish which contact to grab over from these other third-party systems and then tell it, oh, not those, because those are kind of personal in my Gmail or my Outlook or wherever. It's just going to be kind of an all or nothing. If you're opening that highway up to those third-party sources, it's going to say, bring it on. And so this way it kind of helps you maintain that control within your database in booj, so that it's not just bogged down with contacts that you would never want to have in there anyway. But you never know. I mean, if that's feedback that you have, it's likely that others maybe share that same viewpoint. And there could be, I know that there's integrations now, and that's not to say that it won't ever be that way. So we'll see. I guess it's just kind of a stay tuned for now.
So what I'll be saying that this is kind of like a top producer only inside the
Yes,
Tax Agent system.
correct.
The more we work it, the longer down the road, it's all that stuff's going to be in there.
That's exactly right. So
Only we don't have a fee with it.
yeah, and like I told you guys yesterday, with booj, it is truly designed to be a single platform. So before, one of the biggest complaints that I feel like I have had, that you guys have shared with me, that other people around the country have been sharing, is to do one thing, you have to go to a million different places because you're trying to track information here, you're trying to market here. Booj is designed to be one source that you can do it all within that same source. So it should alleviate a lot of frustration, a lot of headache, a lot of red tape, eventually. And I'm glad you said that, because like I shared with you guys yesterday, and I feel like I can say this because this was a thought that went through my mind when I was being trained. I was like, why are we learning about all this stuff if it's not available yet? You know, why are we talking about this if it's a phase 2 feature? And that was just me, you know. So, but when I take a step back and I really looked at it, the way that they're rolling it out is smart, because you guys know with other tech that's been delivered to you all at one time, it's a disaster. It is a disaster. There are bugs, there are kinks, So with this, I feel like they're really doing it the smart way by just introducing you to the system, allowing you to add the most important element, which are your contacts and your leads, getting it just the way you want it, and then saying, okay, let's unlock that door. Now you can do whatever you want with all of these contacts. Now that you've gotten acquainted with the software, now that you understand how to find things and where to go. So it's not just everything all at once. Do y'all agree? I do, because at first I was like, I don't understand why we're talking about this if it's not going to be here until November. But then I thought, I actually like this better. So I think they're doing it.
When they started talking about booj rolling out in April.
Yes.
September before last, at top 500.
Yeah.
I was like, why? Why did you just waste 45 minutes of my life on something
Yes.
that's like 8 months away?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is better.
I think that they handled this very well. What did Melanie say?
I said billionaire, that's a joke.
If it wasn't funny at the time.
Motivational movie about the Civil War.
So what is
Oh,
the
the
organization date?
Yeah.
Close date?
Where are you?
Organization date, is it a close date?
Origination date.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read
I know.
origination date.
It's so
I thought
tiny.
Organization.
Origination date, yeah.
Like 3 times too.
If you just, yes, it's all there, it's organization.
Do y'all have any questions before we move into deals? Dana, if you need to step out, now would be the time. But take comfort, this is just the beta version. This is not live. She's very superstitious, and if y'all didn't know, she shared with that with us yesterday. Any questions about tasks or anything that we've gone through so far? Okay. Okay. All right, so if you guys are with me, I'm going to click back on the booj logo, top left-hand corner. That's going to bring me back to the dashboard, okay? Next, in the main menu there, in the gray bar at the top, I'm going to click on Deals. Is yours navy? It could just be me. My eyes are terrible. Okay. So now you guys may not have anything in your screen, again, because you're in the live version, but this is what your deals could look like when you start adding them, okay? So as you guys can see, one of my favorite features, and I know some of us feel differently, at any given point, you guys can see what your average price is right here between these two that are currently working. You can see what the GCI, what your average percentage is. So like your commission, are you more like a 2.2? Are you a full 3? I'd be really surprised if all of us were full 3s. That's very rare. Also, your average GCI dollars. So if this is what you're expected to walk away with from this transaction, and that's what you're expected to walk away with from that transaction, that's the average. This is very, very handy, especially if you guys look at, say, January, the beginning of the year, and you're sort of planning out your business, and you want to know how many transactions do I need to do in order to walk away with this amount of money in terms of income at the end of the year.
Yeah, you need to have a little government one there too.
Some government tabs so we can all cry. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I felt like I played with this too, is it doesn't account for any of these referral fees or split or anything else. And I wish it had a little bit more
thing to add.
intuition.
Any other, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
If you have that backdate, then what you
Okay.
have, I mean, that's something that keeps up with that.
I
Like,
mean-
you are making this, but you're giving 40% of everyone. And that would be
Mhm.
good to know.
I mean, it's not like I had a spreadsheet going of exactly what I was taking home versus
Mhm.
What you're making.
what I was making, and it's like 1.5% versus 3. I mean,
Mhm.
I kind of want to know that as I move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
But that's like-
Well, the upside of this is all just prospective money. This is maybe money.
I know, I
And we're
mean-
done.
Maybe money.
Yeah, that's right.
Do 5 deals and hope that one or two close.
You can look at your closed transaction dollars.
But even after it closes, it doesn't account for. Nobody can see that.
This is my scenario.
Nobody give that feedback?
Mhm. That was what you're saying is what my understanding was. And are you talking about like,
That's what I do.
I'm talking about like this could be used strategically to see if Op City is worth it, to see if doing Cardis Deals is worth this.
There's
Like,
don't.
But all of that, I'm saying, like, if you could run numbers, if you put the data in there, then you could run numbers to see if
Yes.
how much money you would have made if you would have done X, Y, Z amount of deals, and how much money you did make because you chose to take.
Well, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you should have a section for referrals. That's what we have.
Mhm.
We know how many referrals we have in and out. And
But that
that's
should be in here.
You can put it in as a deal, I would assume.
Let's take a look. Let's walk through the process and we'll work through it. One thing I do want to point out to you guys though, so maybe you don't want to see the average and you just want to see the total or the sum. You can click down here where it says average, like for GCI, for example. I can just click here. If I want to see the sum, what's the total? I can see that. And it's not going to be the sum all the way across the board. So if you just want to see what your average commission rate is, great. But if you want to see the sum of your GCI, even better. So you have that ability as well. And you can also see what your minimum is, your maximum, the median, which is nice too. So depending on the view that you want to see that day, you can change that. And you can always change it back whenever you want. So I'm going to click on sum just because, and I'm going to hit update. So now you guys saw it didn't change my average commission here, and it didn't change my target price. Those are still averages, but this changed to sum. Okay. So let's work through adding a deal. So like everything else, there's a big blue button to add a deal, just like we added a task, just like we added a contact. So I'm going to go up here to add deal. And it wants to know what's the deal name. Everyone's going to do this differently. You can do it by address. You can do it by your seller. You could, whatever you want to do. Okay. So I'm going to say that this is the Addison deal. I know. So it wants to know what's the deal type. Is this a buyer? Is this a seller? What do you got? So I'm going to say it's a list, right? Deal stage. This is fun. So you can say that you know that you have a listing appointment and you can add this under prospect. So you know that you've got something going, but it's not quite signed yet. The listing agreement hasn't been signed. So I'm going to say that this is a prospect stage. I know I'm going on this listing appointment. I feel really good about it. Okay. Target price. This is something that can also change. So target price is what you think that you're going to go in and list at. Okay. So I'm just going to make it simple and say that it's just make it 300. And then you guys will notice this is calculating as you're typing that in, okay? So your commission type, is it a flat rate? No. Or is it a percentage? I'm gonna say percentage. So here's where you can change in that commission structure. So is it a 3%? What's an additional rate? Actually, that may be, well, no, I think you would have to know what your referral is based off the top and just take it off the top. So I'm going to do 2.6 and see what that does.
You're going to figure it in with the referral.
Mm-hmm. So total GCI, right? It changed it. And the origination date, so there's your question, Melinda. What does that mean? This is where I'm creating it. Or if you know that your listing appointment is tomorrow, you could move it to tomorrow. You would just click on that and there you go. Take a date on the calendar. Let's say tomorrow. Expected close date, you could pick 60 days out, 45 days out, depending on the situation. You can always go in and change it. It's just kind of to put it on your radar at this point. So I'm going to go right here with these arrows. I'm going to go into, there's October. I'm going to go November and just pick the 13th. It can always change. Who's the primary participant? This is where it assumes that you have a contact or a lead that's been associated with this. So in my case, John Smith existed in my contact list. So that's who I typed in. And then he showed up right here. So there's my primary. And then if you have an additional participant, you could also list that. So if you've got spouses, if you've got 2 investors, that's where you would list that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So in order before you ever get here, you've got to add these people that you're possibly working with in your database.
Yeah.
But you could do a deal without participants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you
Not
want
a
to put your
required field.
history of deals, then you just put the basic info on how to.
Do you guys see right here, deal integration? So I mentioned yesterday that booj does have current integrations with .loop, DocuSign, and coming soon for ZipLogix. They didn't give us a date on ZipLogics. I know that it's in the works, but just stay tuned because they're going to let us know. You can integrate if you want. Just know that you don't have to. Totally up to you. That is an available feature today, those integrations, from my understanding. I'm just going to say no right here. When it asks me, do I want to sync to a new transaction room? No. And I'm going to add the deal. And then there it is. It just showed up right there on the bottom with all my information, and it updated these as soon as I added it. Just very, very, very simple. Now, going to, you can look this little box right here where I just went up to. So if I just want to see my buyers, I can click that. So you can look at it in a little filtered view. If I want to see listings, there you go. If I want to see them all, I'm going to say all. Hooray. So that's the list view. So just each one in a list. If you want to see a pipeline view, you would just click on pipeline right here. So you see list is lit up blue. I'm going to click pipeline. This is pretty cool too, because say that you go on your listing appointment on the Addison deal that we just created. Everything goes great. You have a signed listing agreement. Now you have an active transaction or an active deal. You can pick this up and drag it over. It's going to say updating to active is going to result in numerous background events. So this is going to say, hey, now you need to do this, 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 and this. Okay. So I'm going to say, okay. Now, heaven forbid something goes wrong. Maybe it expires. Maybe they change their mind. You can also move it back. Okay. So it's going to say, hey, updating to prospect is going to result in a few more changes. Okay. Likewise, if it falls through, which, ooh, nobody ever likes that, you would pick it up and fall through. See that big red bar? But you won't lose it. So say that you bring it back to life. Yay, because y'all do that a lot, right? You bring it back to life. I'm going to say that it fell through. Hey, wait, go back. It's going to ask you, hey, what happened? Why was this deal lost? What was the reason? Timing.
Stupid. I like that one. You're right.
Okay,
That's
so
not an option.
not an option.
Oh,
Timing, maybe it was legal, unqualified
Other.
seller, appraisal, inspection, or other. Let's do other. What's other?
Stupid buyer.
Okay, stupid buyer. All right, now.
I know, hey, we always say that, don't we?
Nope, we don't.
Call it neutral, stupid buyer.
Yeah.
There's enough stupid to go around.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Could we look at those filters again unless you're gonna go on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was, can we look at the filters? So if you guys know when you originated something and you wanted to search just for those origination dates, that's an option. So you can put your from date to end date in here, which is this little guy. Manage filters, so you can look to see what the like which deals have current task plans, which is good, especially if you have active transactions. Odds are you'll have task plans that we talked about associated with those deals. You could see target price. So how much of my business is in this price range? That would be a really cool way to search that. Anything that's got events. So how many of my listings do I do open houses for? Because you can see what's currently working and then is what also what's closed. So that might be a cool thing to look at every quarter, every 6 months, every year. And then you filters right here.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
So you added like open houses as a.
You can, yeah. And so, or maybe you're tagging them, or maybe you have tasks and tags. Either way, or you're tagging the contact. It's all gonna tie together. So if you make a change in a contact who's associated with a task, who's associated with a deal, it's all gonna show that to you in one spot, which is really great. You can show your hidden deals or you can hide them. I always just want to see everything, so I say show. Participants, if you know, like if you have an investor and you want to see everything that that person was involved with, you would just search them or check the box. Name, same thing, same little thing right there. Participants, again, are people who are actively involved in a transaction with you. Go back to list.
The name of the deal.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Why would you want to hide a deal? It would be just like, I hate that, I don't want to think about that guy ever again. Just curious.
Do you guys see where my fell through shows up? So I never lost it. So this is good because this is in my list view again, because right, I was in my pipeline here. Now I am at list view. Y'all with me? Okay, so here's where this one fell through. I can go back in here. I'm gonna click on the sample deal. And I'm gonna say that it's a prospect again, just by clicking on the word prospect. Okay, so you can revive it at any time, because that happens.
We can put it back into pending.
Okay, let's make it pending.
If it's alive, it needs to be alive.
It's really alive. Okay.
Green, I got green.
So this is a really, I'm glad we landed here. This is what the deal record looks like. You guys remember from yesterday, the contact record, where it had every little piece of information that was associated with that contact. Deals work the same way. You can see all of it. When it was originated, what's the expected close date? Do you guys see these little pencils right here? So again, that's what I meant when you can change these things. So if you know that you've got a delay, push it out a little bit further. Or likewise, if you know that it's coming sooner, you can update that. Here's all of the financial information in the next section. If you need to edit the commission, you can. That's what I love about booj. You're not locked in. So if you're creating information or content within the system, you're never stuck. No. You can always go in and make those changes. Here's your, participants that were associated with that deal right here. And again, if I want to know more about that particular participant, which is also a contact, I can click on their names and it's going to bring me to that contact. And then here's where the tasks are, or the events. So if I needed to add an event like an open house, or if I'm doing a realtor luncheon associated with that transaction that you're advertising or whatever, that would be the place to do that. Tasks. Same thing. If you know that you need to do X, Y, Z, you can create those associated with this deal. And then the task plans, that's something that is more automated. So on day 3, you need to do this. On day 5, you need to do this. All of that is set according to what you want it to do.
So I think you covered this, but under task plans, they've got like templates that we can go in and tweak to suit our needs.
So here's one, seller close. And again, can y'all look in your live environments and tell me if you've got anything in task plans? Because again, I'm in beta. Y'all do?
We have 4.
Okay,
Buyer
4
close,
templates.
so look at them. Buyer close, new buyer, new listing, and seller close.
Okay, good. So yes, and I believe you can edit those as well. The content with, or the I'm gonna say content, the content that are within those plans, you can edit them to where they make sense for you in your own environment. Okay. Very nice question.
You have to assign people to this plan, right?
You don't have to. It could be you. You would just it would just assign it to you because you're you. But in a team environment.
New buyer. So when you put in a new contact, you have to click new buyer as their plan for it to remind you to do these things to that person, right?
Yes, because you want to always associate it, because it needs to know how do I apply this? Where does it go? Who does it work with? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
I'm sorry, if this isn't the right time to ask this, let me know. But when it talked about the integration,
Yes.
I understand the systems it can work with, but let's say ZipLogic got on board with that. Would it bring documents over or just let you know where you're at, like with getting documents signed or whatever?
My understanding is that it's just going to give you more of a timeline and a sequence. But there was also some talk that with these integrations, they're going to become a lot more robust in terms of the documents and how you can kind of manipulate those and manage those. So we'll see. It's just, I think if that's something that's important to you guys, then continue to send that feedback to booj, because that's how they're building this thing. I know that there are a lot of integrations coming. We asked about Back Agent. They were talking with them. So I don't know. That's the short of it. I don't know. But I think that it's certainly on the table.
The biggest thing that would be if the contacts would flow from one place to the other. I mean, I think that's what Paige is saying.
Yeah.
Because the key of contact into zip form, into this, in the Back Agent, just one client that you need to deal with, that's 3 places. I mean, kind of redundant,
And that's after you put them in your phone, and you put them in your
you know,
email contacts.
Mm-hmm.
but it's more places.
If you have a CRM, and if you want a CRM, you just have to put them in.
Right.
That's the only way to get them.
Yeah. You're like, that's what works for me. Yeah. Yeah. So for you guys on Zoom, what they're saying is, with contacts, you've got them here, you've got them there, you've got them everywhere. So, it just, they're feeling like it's a little bit redundant. And so Melinda was saying that, with your CRM, and you guys have heard us say this too, really with anything that you use, it's only going to be as good as what you put into it. And it's only going to do so much that what it can work with. So if CRM is important to you in a way to organize yourself and really have all the information at your disposal from one platform, then you're definitely going to want to nurture it every day. And it should be something that's just a part of your business day in and day out. And as you guys use it more and more, it should be sort of just like a sidekick that you bring along with you, that everything kind of lives here in a way that's accessible both on the computer, but also on your phones, which is huge. So when you go to, say you're having an open house and you're meeting someone, you pull up your booj app and you add them right in and they're there. You get a call from call time and somebody says, hey, I want to go see this, or I want to list my property. You're on your computer already, or you're on your phone already. You would just add them right into booj. So yeah, I see what you guys are saying, but I also see the flip side. And with booj, they're assuming and they're hoping that you guys are going to be working in it already. So it should be just a natural thing to add your contacts in there as well.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
I went in and I made a deal.
Yeah.
And when I look under, the description and I look at the participants, it's only showing their email address. It's not showing their phone numbers. Like not even showing them.
Let's take a look.
And I have phone numbers for both of these because if I click on them, I have phone numbers saved. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking.
Is it the way you say the numbers, because didn't you have to not have the hyphen or something for them?
No, I mean,
Yesterday when you did it?
I saved them and then, everything's up.
Oh.
It's already imported.
Will you send me an email with that? Yeah. And just saying like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And then I'll send it up to the booj team. All right. And I'm glad that you guys brought that up. If y'all are working within the system and you kind of come up against a little roadblock or something that's like, hey, I wish it could do this, or hey, this is what I think it should be showing me, but it's not, will you send me an email? One thing that they asked us to do after our training was to continue sending them updates and feedback. And I started a little log yesterday. That way I'm just going to send it as it comes in. So don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Not that any of you are, but just let me know if you guys come up against anything that you think needs a second look, and we'll send it in. Okay, so similarly, how tasks can be affiliated or associated with a contact or a lead, a deal, or like a personal task. Task plans are really kind of the same way. So when you go in to add a task plan, it's going to want to know, is this going to be a task plan for a contact or a lead? Is this a task plan that is going to be specific to a deal for your buyer? Or is this a task plan that's going to be specific to a deal for your seller? Because you guys know your processes look different depending on who you're representing at the time. So for our purposes today, I'm just going to select contact or lead, and I'm just going to hit build a task plan.
This may sound silly. Where did you get to go back to the settings up in the top left? Because I don't see that on just the normal. When I hit booj, go back to the home page. Is the settings pages?
You can go to your little person, top right, and hit settings.
Thank you.
Yeah. I also navigated there through the deal, because we started in the deal screen and clicked on the participant. And then likewise, there was a little thing at the bottom that said add a task plan, or it would show you the tasks and events. You can click a button there to add a task plan. Okay. Now, down here, as I'm creating a task plan, I also have a few different options. I can duplicate it or copy it. So sometimes you do have overlap in your processes when you have a buyer and when you have a seller. So you can kind of use one, say that you create one for a buyer. You can duplicate it and then make a few changes so that it fits for the seller side. And then you can duplicate it and then make a few changes so that it fits for the buyer side. So you can kind of use one, say that you create one for a buyer. You can duplicate it and then make a few changes so that it fits for the seller side. You can duplicate it and then make a few changes so that it fits Because a lot of it, you're going to send a thank you note or you're going to make a follow-up phone call. Those things can apply to both. So that's where you would do that. You would create a copy right underneath actions. Okay. You can add a description. So what is this task plan going to do? With that little pencil like we talked about, and then adding a task, I would just click the blue button that says to add a task. And here I would go, this offset date. Do you guys see this little question mark right here? If you're ever wondering what the heck does that mean, all you have to do is click that and it's going to tell you, hey, this is what we're talking about. This is what that means. So you never have to guess. So for a task in a task plan, when it wants to know what's the day offset, that's the day that the task is due based on when that task plan is put into effect or when it's launched. So if you guys, does anybody in here use Contactually by chance? Okay, so we do. That's what the staff uses. And in the Contactually world, it's called a program. So if I add a new agent, this is how I use it. If I add a new agent, I check the box that says they're a new to RE/MAX 1 agent. And because of that, a task plan or a program is initiated, starting with a welcome email from me. On day 2, they get another email. Hey, this is what Max Center means. On day 3, they get another email. So that's what this is talking about too.
Kind of like your flow, remind them to get your
Mhm.
electricity and stuff.
Right. Or, hey, been in your house a week now.
Exactly. Exactly. So again, the day offset is when the task is due based on when your plan was launched. So think about it. When does it need to be done based on when I start this process? So is it 3 days from now? Is it 4 days from now? Is it 1 day from now? And you can do steps, so multiple tasks that have different offset dates. Does that make sense? I know that's kind of jumbly.
But can you say 3 days before closing date?
How does it go negative?
I know that's the problem with calculating. Every closing date is different.
Every closing date is different. So I'm wondering if, I'm going to think about that. Because the way that I think about it is if I could tag somebody or say like, closing in 2 weeks or closing in 1 week, that would initiate this task plan. Say, okay, go, like get started. So I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna add that to my log, and I'll let you guys know what they say.
You could do one that's called like when an offer is accepted.
Yeah, like 25 days.
And then,
Mhm.
yeah, like if normally
And
it's
work it
35
down.
days, you can just guess about 25.
True, and kind of work it backwards.
Uh-huh.
And that's a good workaround too.
And if it comes up too early, you just throw it in that low priority.
Yeah.
Just stare at it for a couple days.
Exactly. Stare at it for a couple of days. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. Just like with little tasks, the plans also can have priority levels, and the tasks within the task plan can also have priority levels. So totally up to you. You can also enter a description here, whatever that is. You may not need a description. If it's self-explanatory, then it's self-explanatory, but just know you have that ability. Send a welcome. I'm gonna click on the blue add a task button. There it is. At any point, I can delete that from my process. So maybe you guys update the way that you do things and you no longer need it. There's a little trash can right here where you can delete it. Likewise, you can edit that same thing with a pencil. Okay. Any questions?
Is there any way to go ahead and set up the actual email where it automatically sends it out for you, or you, whenever you see that, go in and do it again? Like a drip campaign on the day, you know what I mean? Not a drip.
So I'm glad you asked.
Template type of thing,
Yeah, so that's automation. So task plan automation. So you guys see this. So this is why, and this is still being developed. So if you have little kinks, let me know. That should be pretty common with this right now. This is a triggered event causes something else to happen. Okay. So if a lead is added to booj, then apply this task plan for a new internet lead. Okay. So if a contact is added, apply this plan. Maybe that's a welcome email, or hey, how can I help you today? Or add them to my monthly newsletter or something. So with this automation, you can just click that blue button. Imagine that says add automation. And these are the little entities. So it's an if then. If this happens, then do this. Okay.
That's cool.
This was the one component that got the most comments and feedback while we were training, because they were like, how will we know if it's an internet lead to apply the internet lead task plan? How will the system know that? So they are creating more entities. And one of ours was like, what if we add somebody and tag them as an agent? So if I add an agent into my CRM, can they get a welcome email from me, or can they get the monthly or the weekly calendar from me? So that's something that they are continuously working on. So keep an eye out. But right now, these are the default ones. So a contact, a lead, maybe it's contact or lead, we don't know yet. Maybe it's a buyer deal or a listing deal. So I'm going to pick buyer deal. So if a buyer deal is added, right, because that's the trigger, you're adding a deal into the system, then do this. Initiate the buyer close task plan. These are all the things I need to do in order to ensure that that buyer gets to closing. Make sense? So I'm going to click on buyer close, and I'm going to say add. So here it is. It just popped up on the top row. And I'm going to click on this pencil. Actually, I'm going to click on the buyer close plan name. So you guys can see, here's what's going to happen right now. So on day 0, right, because when you're added, the first thing should start. Does that make sense? So on day 0, I'm going to send a copy of the signed offer to the seller's agent buyer, blah, 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 blah. And then here are all the little things that are going to take place from there. So everything that you would expect to see to get you all the way to closing. This isn't a complete list, obviously, because it's just for demo purposes. But you guys can see day 3, now that it's closed, what do I do? So when you update that status in here to close, you should have another little set of, do you remember when we moved things and it said it's going to kick off background events? That's what this is talking about. Okay, and you can edit all of these to your liking.
Is there a way to snooze it?
Ooh, maybe. I don't know. It's a good question. I would assume so. Like, hey, remind me later, because most CRMs work that way. So yeah, let me know. I'm going to play with it myself and create little plans just for what we do on the staff side, and I'll keep you guys posted. But that's a really good question.
My CRM, if I don't do it, it just comes up every day.
It just says, hey,
Every day.
time to do it. Okay.
Maybe that's a pesky little time right now.
Well, and if you guys remember too, up here, it'll show you what's overdue. So if you miss it on the day that you're supposed to do it, it's going to say, hey, overdue.
That's like a past due bill. I don't like
Yeah, I
those.
can't stand to see that. But if I'm choosing to snooze, I don't want to be in the red.
You also have notifications. So whenever we created that task of making flyers and I assigned it to me, I got a notification. You guys can control what type of notifications you want, whether it's an email, a little notification on your phone, like what you're used to receiving, both. It could be none of it if you didn't want it to be. So it's completely up to you. Just know that you will be notified anytime something is assigned to you or that needs your attention. It's going to let you know. Any questions?
So can you have it, I mean, I'm sure on the booj icon, can you have it where it just shows that you have notifications so that you can go into booj and check your notifications without getting?
It'll be a push notification. So like, you know, when you get a Facebook thing and maybe your phone's locked, it'll kind of give you a preview, but then when you open it, it's just a little circle with the 1 or the 3 or 500 or whatever that looks like. Booj will work the same way, a push notification. It drives me nuts. I can't have the little red notifications on anything.
Don't ever steal my phone.
Oh my gosh, it makes me crazy.
I don't like the blue dots.
Okay, yeah, the blue dots.
Either.
I don't like that either.
First thing in the morning, click, 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 click. Or the highlighted, unread selection.
All right. Any
Yeah,
other
but
questions
I'll
for
click on
today
it.
before we wrap this up? What about you guys on Zoom? Anything for me? Okay. Well, thank you all so very much. As a reminder, tomorrow we're going to get started looking at the website, which I'm pumped about. Show and tell in the morning, agent websites, office websites, a little bit of team. They're very similar. So we'll show you guys what those look like. We'll show you the templates, what those are going to look like. They're beautiful. And we'll talk about kind of how the sites are going to talk to each other, because that's important as well, and that hierarchy. So 10:15 tomorrow, we're going to have breakfast from Stuart Title. They're going to bring in something delicious, I'm sure. And then 2 o'clock tomorrow, we'll actually get into your websites, and you guys can start kind of moving some things around. 2 o'clock. So bring your laptops for 2 o'clock. Again, everything's recorded. So if you need access to it, it's within Back Agent. It's going to be there today. You'll go to Office, then Documents, and then there's a folder that says All About booj. Everything's going to be in there. I think that's it.
So are you gonna be redoing these classes again, in case we can't make every class?
No,
Like,
because you missed the first one, we're not going back.